Good morning. My name is Jessica Costantino. I'm with AARP Massachusetts, and I'm joined by a group of fellow AARP Massachusetts, AARP experts, and community experts. We're so glad that you joined us today. We are hoping in this session to provide some resources on caregiving and on action that's happening in your community. And we hope that you will have lots of comments and questions for us. This event is being recorded, so if you can't stay for the whole thing, we will send it out to you after the fact. I'm going to get started first with my colleague on our national team and expert in caregiving, Leslie Cyphers, is going to talk about some of the caregiving resources that AARP has. If you have comments or questions, you can connect with us one of two ways. You can put your comment in the chat box, which is down at the bottom of your ribbon, or throw it into the Q&A and we will pull it from there and ask your comments and questions. So I'm turning it over now to Leslie from our National Caregiving team. Thanks, Leslie.
Thanks, Jess. All right, there we go, everyone. Thanks for your patience. As Jess mentioned, my name is Leslie Cyphers. I am from AARP's National Office on the Caregiving team. I actually came from the AARP Massachusetts office. I was there from 2013 to 2016, so happy to be joining you guys again today. Would like to talk just briefly about AARP and family caregiving and some of the resources that we have local, statewide, and nationwide. So AARP's research around unpaid family caregiving has highlighted the need for resources and supports for those caring for family members and loved ones. The 2020 update of caregiving in the US, the study that you see this slide here, revealed that there was an increase in the number of family caregivers in the United States by 9.5 million between 2015 and 2020. This brings the total number of family caregivers up to more than 1 in 5 Americans. This is some information on why AARP has been supporting caregiving. As I mentioned before, we have over 48 million family caregivers in the United States providing unpaid care for family members or loved ones. So that can include a spouse, a neighbor, a friend, or a grandparent. The work that we do at the national office, specifically on my team, is to provide these caregivers with resources and tools, and to advocate for better quality, affordable, and accessible services so that they can provide their care recipients with the care that they need. Here's just, this is sort of what we call our bread and butter sort of resource for family caregiving. This is the Caregiving Resource Center, which is AARP's main website for caregiving resources. It's aarp.org/caregiving. This is where family caregivers can find information, content, tools, and links, and is also available in Spanish. The 1877 and 1888 number that you see on the bottom are toll-free specialized call center numbers in English and Spanish, where AARP members and non-members can call for caregiving advice. AARP has long had family caregiving guides available on its website and in-person copies designed to help develop and implement a family plan for caregiving for a loved one or friend. The guides include information on how to have important conversations with loved ones, ways to assess loved ones' needs, and tips for organizing important documents and checklists as well. The guides are available online in English, Spanish, and Chinese, and we also have versions available for Asian American, veteran and military, and LGBTQ communities. You can find these guides at aarp.org/prepare-to-care. AARP also created state resource guides to help family caregivers access key programs and services in their specific communities. We have one of these guides available for every state. I've included the link for the Massachusetts guide below, but say you're caring for someone who perhaps lives in a different state, you're able to go online and also access the information for those states as well. They include tools and support for health, legal, and financial resources and assistance, as well as respite care. Here are just some additional resources available from AARP online. If you are on Facebook, we do have an AARP Family Caregiving Facebook page that is monitored by AARP staff and volunteers. It is a private group, however, you are able to request to join in order to access the content and have conversations with fellow family caregivers. The caregiving instructional videos are focused on training family caregivers who perform medical and nursing tasks. These videos were developed by AARP's Public Policy Institute. You can see on the left, one of the examples of the videos is on wound care. The videos are available in both English and Spanish. One really helpful resource that we developed with the Alzheimer's Association is the Community Resource Finder. It has information on programs and events in local and state communities, care at home, community services, housing options, and medical services. If you go to this website, you can type in your zip code or the zip code of your loved one and find all of the resources available in your specific community. On learn.aarp.org, we also have a wide variety of live and recorded webinars on caregiving topics. The live events allow for chats between guests and our speakers who answer participants' questions directly on anything from caregiving to fraud to livable communities, which I know you'll hear about next. So the nation's 48 million family caregivers are not only dedicating their time and efforts to the well-being of their loved ones, but most of them are also spending their own money on caregiving expenses. A 2021 survey showed that 3/4 of family caregivers reported spending over $7,200 annually out of pocket on costs related to caregiving. In order to help ease this financial burden, AARP created a financial workbook for family caregivers. It's a guide to help get organized with a set of worksheets designed to capture essential information about finances and related to responsibilities of caregiving. We recommend making a copy of the completed guide to give to trusted relatives, colleagues, or friends. And that is just a short snippet of our caregiving resources. Below, you'll find our family caregiving email address. So if you guys have any further questions, please feel free to reach out to us directly, as well as to my state office colleagues, Jess and Antron. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Leslie. We really appreciate all of those resources. And for those of you who are joined, if you joined a minute or two late, we are hearing about caregiving, AARP's resources, why we're doing it. What we know is that if you're not currently a caregiver, you might likely be one in the future, and you may need care at some point of your life. So we are trying to think holistically about how do we help people at AARP, our members and their families, to be better prepared. And also, if you're in the midst of doing caregiving, what we can help you with. Lots of resources. So thank you, Leslie, for sharing that. I'm going to turn it over to Antron because we're going to dive a little bit deeper into what's happening closer to home through what AARP calls our age-friendly communities and livable communities. So Antron, take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jess. So, as both Leslie and Jess have mentioned, AARP is really dedicated to working with communities to make our communities better for everyone. So I'm actually going to bring on my colleague from the Livable Communities team, Mike Watson, who's going to give us a little bit about what Livable Communities is and how it is showing up across the country.
Thanks, Antron. Thanks for having us and hosting this series of important conversations across the area on the types of supports that we all need as we are aging. Antron mentioned our work on livable communities, and many of you might be familiar with it, but I'm just going to take a couple minutes and kind of give you a little bit of background on that. So first of all, ARP is working in hundreds of communities today, including scores and dozens across the state of Massachusetts, to improve communities. So we call our great places for all ages. And we believe that if you look at a community and identify the top needs of older adults in that community and build your community infrastructure and build your community's resources and support around the needs of older adults, you're going to create a community that's great for everybody. It's going to be great for their family. It's going to be great for their neighbors, and it's going to be great for their kids and grandkids. So that really.
Sorry to interrupt you, Mike. You're an excellent thought there. We're having some trouble with your microphone. So we can get you to fix that for us a little bit.
Yes, let me try to figure out what's going on with my mic. Is that any better?
Yeah, a little bit better.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, while we're talking, I'll try to figure out what's going on with my mic. But let me know if you cannot hear me. I'll try to speak a little bit louder, maybe by yelling at my computer. So if my yelling throws you off, apologies for that. So I was mentioning kind of why our work on livable is important. It's because we know that communities that are great for older adults are going to be great for everybody. And we know that our country is getting older. And by 2034, there are more people over the age of 65 than under the age of 18. We also looked around the country and saw that a lot of local leaders and a lot of communities weren't really thinking holistically about their aging population and how to kind of build the supports and community infrastructure that we know older adults are going to need so that they can thrive in place. We also know that basically every single older adult, ARP asks this survey question over the years, and roughly 8 in 10 older adults tell us every single year that they want to remain in the places that they live. And you all probably know the reasons for this. It's where you raise your families, it's where your friends are, it's where your doctors are, it's where your community networks are. So people want to remain in communities, and we believe that communities need to be prepared and are taking action. And one of the ways that we're seeing that happen is very well represented in the state of Massachusetts. This is through what is called the AARP network of age-friendly states and communities. So today, this is 700 communities across the country that are taking action by listening to older adults' needs, wants, and concerns, just like these conversations today, and building kind of plans that are based on those concerns and implementing them over the course of several years. So we know that this is a way that communities are taking action, and we saw this firsthand during the COVID-19 pandemic as communities that were part of this network had done the hard work to listen to older adults' concerns and built those partnerships, were better prepared to respond during COVID-19. And we know from this work on the ground, caregiving is a top issue for communities in the AARP network. And that is because it's a top issue for older adults in those communities. I'm going to highlight a few ways that communities across the network are actually prioritizing the needs of family caregivers and using that to improve overall the community for everybody. The first is supporting family caregivers with information and resources. We see communities across the network taking action, setting up new guides, new resource books, new web pages, new local tools to help family caregivers identify support and resources and help those who need care identify support and resources as well. In Salem, Massachusetts, there was a great example during COVID-19. 206 volunteers contacted 6,000 people over the age of 50 to ensure that they were safe and had their needs met. Similarly, in Ridgewood, New Jersey, we saw communities develop a network of retired professionals to assist older adults and new caregivers who required some training and resources. Those are two ways that communities are kind of addressing that through information and resources. Another thing I want to highlight is how communities are building our transportation infrastructure in some really important ways at the neighborhood level, largely by using volunteer driving programs to help people get from where they are in their home to where they need to be for a medical appointment, and ensuring that family caregivers have the resources they need to access those resources as well. Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania has a fantastic program where they have created a new pair of transit vehicles to move food and supplies during COVID-19, and also after COVID-19 have been able to also move people to more medical appointments. And here in Chelmsford, Massachusetts also has a very similar program where they established a volunteer transportation program, again, to help move people from their house to a medical appointment or other places. Finally, I just want to highlight how communities that we see across the country are addressing the needs of family caregivers by addressing the housing crisis that many communities are facing today. One of the ways that we've seen folks do this is in Jackson, Wyoming, where the community created new types of family options for older adults, people with disabilities, and family caregivers who wish to live. So you kind of had this pairing up with an older adult who needed some support and kind of a co-housing arrangement where somebody who needed some housing was able to move in after going through background checks and help them remain in their home as they age. Madison, New Jersey has also taken action on this by helping older adults and family caregivers finance projects to their home to improve the accessibility so that folks can remain in their home as they age. And then finally, we've seen communities across the country taking action to create more new housing options called accessory dwelling units, which is essentially a small house on the property where the main home is. Communities across Massachusetts have done this, and we know it's because people want to remain in their homes as they age and want to have a place where a family caregiver can live and they can have the support and resources they need. There are two resources I just want to highlight for you all. If you want to learn a little bit more, you can go to aarp.org/livable. We have a lot of great information and resources for you as you look across your community if you want to learn more. We also have a resource called the Home Fit Guide, which is going to give you practical tips and guidance for you as you're looking around your home to help identify some of the quick fixes that you can make to make your home more accessible and you can live in it as you age. So with that, well, I'm really happy to be here today. Thank you for having me. Antron, I'm going to turn it back to you now.
Thank you, Mike, for that wonderful explanation of livable communities and how ARP is, working to really support caregiving beyond just the general resources, but looking at our communities and working with our community leadership. I really appreciate that. So next up, to really drill down a little bit more into Massachusetts and the way Age Friendly is showing up here, I'm going to bring on my colleague, my roadshow partner at a lot of times, James Fuccione from Massachusetts Healthy Aging Collaborative, to really talk about the age and dementia friendly movement here in Massachusetts. James?
Thanks a lot, Antron, and good to see everybody. Good to see the AARP team today. So I'm going to share some slides about sort of the Massachusetts version of the age-friendly movement. And so, just a moment, please. So the Massachusetts Healthy Aging Collaborative, as Antron said, I'm lucky enough to work with AARP Massachusetts and a bunch of national partners as well. We are funded by the Point 32 Health Foundation. So that's the combination of Harvard Pilgrim Healthcare and Tufts Health Plan that created a new foundation. And our work is focused on supporting inclusive age and dementia friendly communities, as well as a statewide age and dementia friendly initiative that talks about what this community level initiative and grassroots movement means on a statewide level for state policy and programs. So Mike and Antron and others have talked about this movement, which originated way back when with the World Health Organization, has been strengthened, to say the least, by AARP and amplified, but wanted to highlight a couple of things: that age-friendly communities are accessible, equitable, inclusive, safe and secure and supportive in an ideal sense, and recognize that older people play a crucial role in their communities. And this is all about an older adult's role in helping care for family members, but also helping family members care for older people and for kids. So there's a whole framework called the 8 domains that ties to the age-friendly work, but in Massachusetts, there's also a very strong dementia-friendly community movement. And rather than having two separate frameworks, we found an opportunity to align these two movements into one initiative that communities and regions of communities can take on. So you see some of the things that Mike talked about just a moment ago, including housing and transportation, but also the role of technology. We've learned during the pandemic that access to technology is incredibly important for a whole range of reasons, but also focused on access, equity, and inclusion in this movement, the role of the business community and local government, and so on and so forth. So taking a real cross-sector approach to what being age and dementia friendly means. So I guess the point of this slide, suffice to say that there's a lot going on in Massachusetts. We have more than 90 communities recognized by AARP as age friendly. And luckily, we've gotten a lot of communities to work together as part of a regional approach, and more than 150 communities are captured in that. So very likely you live or work in a city or town that is involved in this movement. And many more are dementia friendly, including, our statewide initiative that captures every community in the state. And happy to share more about that too. Another great thing about this movement is that it's not just about AARP. It's not just about councils on aging or sort of what we call the usual suspects of healthy aging. It's about, like I said, local government, arts and culture, chambers of commerce, public health partners, universities, schools, all kinds of different folks that come together to think about what their role is in supporting caregiving and supporting older adults and supporting healthy aging and all the things that we've been talking about on this webinar today. So lots of great examples here, just a real big kind of combo platter of different partners across the state that are involved that people may not expect to be involved in this kind of work, which is exciting for us. And this is a messy but favorite slide of mine where it talks about sort of what this looks like and how it shows up in community. So just to move up through a couple of these pictures really quickly, on the top left, during the pandemic, the RMV, we worked with the RMV to have special days and hours dedicated to older adults, where older adults could come in and have the place be a little less hectic and crowded. And we also had some of our local partners there giving out information on caregiving, on accessing any services and supports that older adults might need during the pandemic, including food access, caregiving support, of course, and other things. We've been able to work with statewide partners on physical infrastructure and ensuring that is age and dementia friendly, which includes just better crosswalks, places to sit, and separated bike lanes, just keeping everybody safe, and having a little more complete thought with regard to just everybody in the community. You can see just going through, borrowing Wi-Fi hotspots from libraries, all the way down to, on the bottom left, fare-free buses, which have expanded. And then even though the summer's over, I'll just shift over to the right side. A lot of beach communities in Massachusetts that are age friendly are putting down beach mats so that beaches can be accessible to anybody with some mobility challenges, so that those places are more accessible. But lots of great work going on all over the state just to make sure communities are more inclusive and more thoughtful when it comes to older adults and caregivers. And just lastly, we have tons of great information on our website about this work, but also tons of resources, data on local communities, and a news section with all kinds of funding opportunities and ways that ways this movement is showing up in communities. So I'm used to talking for a lot longer, and I pack a lot of information in a short amount of time, but I'm happy to talk about this with anybody that's interested. And again, feel free to visit our website. Thanks to Antron and the team. I will stop sharing, but I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you all today.
Awesome. Thank you so much, James, for really, drilling into what's happening here in Massachusetts. Can you real quickly explain the red and green hearts on the map? I think the red hearts are age and dementia friendly, and
yeah. So there's more than we're really trying to get to the century mark. We're trying to get to 100 red hearts, which are the active age friendly communities. There's a lot of green hearts on there too, which we call emerging age friendly communities. Ones that are working on the process but haven't quite met the threshold of that commitment to go through the whole process yet. So a lot of great work happening all over the state.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much, James, for really giving that nice, thorough explanation of what's happening here in Massachusetts. So, as we like I said, we're drilling down, from the broader subject to more the local resources. As James mentioned, really, looking at the local partners to really make sure residents and communities are connected with people in their communities. So the next person we're going to have speaking with you is Stacy Alpert from Boston Senior Home Care, who will hopefully share some resources local to the greater Boston area. Stacy, over to you.
Yes, Ron, thank you. Thanks for the invite. I'm happy to share what I have here. Make sure I'm sharing. Can you see my slideshow?
Looks great.
Okay. Is it in presentation mode? Because it doesn't look like it is.
Yep, it is.
Okay, perfect. I have 3 screens here. I want to make sure you guys are seeing the right one. So thank you for having me. I'm going to do a brief overview of the Caregiver Solutions Program, which is a program here in the city of Boston. And then I will touch on just how you can also access the same type of services throughout the state. So here in Boston, we serve anyone who lives in the city of Boston for Caregiver Solutions. So that could be the caregiver or the care recipient. As long as someone has a residence in Boston, we can work with you. Get to the next slide. I'm sorry here. Okay. So Caregiver Solutions is a program to help support the caregiver on their journey. So you guys have heard a lot already today about caregiving. It looks different for everyone. So we work with an array of caregivers. The caregiver themselves might be 18, might be 80. That doesn't matter. The care recipient has to be 60 years or older to work with us. And there's a disability. If there's a disability, then we can have a younger care recipient. And then we also do work with grandparents. So if we have a grandparent with custody of their grandchild, we can support in that caregiving journey as well. So go to the next slide here. This is specifically about grandparents. There are many grandparents throughout the state of Massachusetts caring for their grandchildren. We want to help you, in the city of Boston, but throughout the state, every caregiver program also wants to help you. So we can help with all kinds of things. If there's school tutor, if there's camp, if there's summer programs, any of that type of stuff, assistance with hooking up with other resources, we want to be able to help with that. And if we can't help ourselves, then we can make referrals to help grandparents get the resources that they need. So some ways that we help all caregivers, a supportive level counseling, our caregiver advisors, our master's level staff who can help provide that support and guidance throughout your journey. We are a short-term program, but we're also a revolving door program. So we might have someone who comes to us in the moment, it's episodic, and then they leave us and they come back to us. So we're here to help support in the moment, and then we can make referrals out for more longer term if needed. We can help with respite care, whatever that looks like, whether that's a service coming into you, or if you have a family member who can help out, but we want to be able to pay them, we could help through a respite scholarship in that way. We can put more traditional home care type services in short term to provide that respite for the caregiver. We can link up with education and coaching resources for Alzheimer's and dementia, guidance on end of life care, help with scholarships again for those after school programs and summer camps, and then assistance with assistive technology. We're very big on technology. It really is, the way our world is going. So we have helped people with a lot of different items. Go to this next slide here, and I'll just show you an example. We do offer 3 support groups as well, and they're all virtual. So let's say we have someone who wants to join a support group but doesn't have the technology to do so, we could certainly help get them that technology. Or if they don't have Wi-Fi, although we are still trying to figure out the best way to help people with Wi-Fi, we want to be able to help get them Wi-Fi in their home. The Amazon Echo shows are a huge device, huge sell for us, I guess I should say. It helps give a caregiver peace of mind if they can't be with their loved one 24/7. That device will provide the video option to be able to check in on someone. And it's really great for long distance caregivers as well. And then the Ring doorbell system is great. We have provided a lot of those as well, because we have people who maybe a caregiver works all day, but there's services coming into the home. They have the app on their phone and they know when someone rings that doorbell, they know that worker showed up. Or if it's a grandparent, they know when their grandchild got home from school. So those types of technology devices are really, really a big part of what we help people with. And then, just other devices as well, whether it's a laptop because a child needs one for school, or an iPad as a respite device for the caregiver who wants to unwind at night and wants to just, do something mindless on an iPad or something. We can help with all different kinds of that stuff. But like I said, technology is a huge piece of what we help with. And then, so that's specifically what my program in Boston does, the Caregiver Solutions program. But as I mentioned, throughout the state, the same program exists amongst the 25 ASAPs throughout the state. And so a good way, if you don't know what your local ASAP is, a good way to find out is by going through massoptions.org. And they have a lot of different ways to help navigate their site, whether you could call, you could check on their website, you can do a live chat with someone, you can make a self-referral for whatever you need. But it's just that's a great option to be able to take a look at where you need to get to be able to access these same types of services that I just gave an overview of. And that was very quick, but that's what I have on Caregiver Solutions. Please feel free to reach out with any questions or anything, and I will pass it back over.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Stacy, for really sharing those resources local to the area here. It's very helpful to know that there's a statewide program that's offering caregiving resources as well. So at this time, we're actually reached the point where we want to be able to answer your questions. So please feel free to enter those questions into chat or into the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen, and we will try to get those answered for you.
Antron, I think that what we've heard has been so helpful, and you can see that Massachusetts has a wealth of resources and ARP has a wealth of resources, and sometimes that can be overwhelming. And so we know that people are at different points. I think it was Stacy who mentioned people along their caregiving journey, and it is a journey. And so we are trying to be a resource for people where they are, as opposed to everybody knowing all the resources at, right at the beginning. So I haven't seen any questions or comments in the chat, and I'm surprised that people are so quiet, but it looks like we've got one here. Can we get a copy of your slides? This is valuable resources and information. And we're going to send out the whole presentation along with this, so you'll be able to see all of this to all the participants, right, Antron?
Yes, we will.
Great. It's a lot. Sorry, I think you've identified just how much of information is included. Thanks to all of our presenters. They've been wonderful. Anybody else with comments or questions? We don't want to keep you if you are, we know everybody's busy, but if you have questions, don't be shy. So just some forward thinking so that folks know. So we're doing these around the Commonwealth, a virtual series, different parts of the state, really to hone in on what's happening in your particular region. But I think that this has been the information really is helpful anywhere in the state. I see another question, and how has the pandemic or worker shortage impacted the volunteer network? Actually, we have on this call our volunteer director at ARP Massachusetts. She's in the background, so I don't want to put her on the spot. So I'm going to say something, and then if she wants to jump in, she can. I think in general, what we've heard from people during the pandemic around volunteering is initially, of course, everybody retreated to their homes to try to be more safe. And then we're starting to see people come back to wanting to do in-person type of events. But what we've heard overwhelmingly is that people want to be able to do both. And so they want to be able to have online and virtual types of activities and resources and in person when they can. So from the volunteering perspective, Kelly, I don't want to put you on the spot, but if you want to jump in, otherwise, Antron, do you want to add?
No, Jess, I think you summed it up nicely. I think it's been a very individual kind of issue area. We do have volunteers that kind of stayed in the background and didn't want to be involved virtually, but they've still been reading the emails and now they're eager to get back out into community with us. And we have some volunteers that have really been able to enhance some of the programming that we've had and add a virtual component to it as well. So we try to be respectful of those different ways in which volunteers want to interact with us. And yeah, it's been an interesting 2.5 years, but it's good to still have volunteers interacting with us even virtually.
It sure has. Thank you, Kelly. And I think the other thing Mike pointed out are some of the unique volunteer opportunities that have come out of the pandemic, which communities are really thinking through now. How do we keep them going? For example, the Chelmsford volunteer transportation system that really was put in place to try to address that very immediate need that happened during COVID's initial period. But how do we continue good programs like that going forward? So I see two more things. We're seeing, according to Leslie, we've got volunteers who want to do things both in person and virtual at the national level, and the hybrid experience is allowing people who are still working and or caregiving to participate in some of this. So if you're a caregiver, this opportunity to do things in a hybrid, virtual / in-person world might be just the thing, and we would love to have you be part of that. And then another comment here is, who does home assessments to determine what I need in my home? How do you make an assessment for how much care an elder needs? And for example, if I can't be at home 24/7, how do I bring in home support? Those are wonderful questions and comments. And I think I'm going to turn it over to Stacy as the on the ground point person. If you wouldn't mind shedding some insights as how you do this when you're thinking about helping folks.
Sure. So I think I heard kind of two questions in one there, and you might not even know that you asked two questions, but basically you asked, how do I get care for my loved one, as well as you could use some support. So it's two different things, kind of. The caregiver support program, depending on where you live, if it's in the Boston area, you would come to me. Otherwise, you could go to any of the 25 ASAPs around the state, and you could figure out which one you need to access the caregiver. It's called the Family Caregiver Support Program. So that would be the program that exists to support you as a caregiver in your journey. And then that's where some of the things I was talking about as far as the devices and some short-term respite services could come into play. But on a more long-term level, it sounds like, the agency that I work for, which is Boston Senior Home Care, again, is an ASAP, and there are 25 throughout the state. So there's one for everyone in Massachusetts. Would be services for, I'm sorry, I think you might have said your husband, but your loved one, to receive services if he is found eligible. So that is an in-home assessment to determine his functioning level and, determine what he might be eligible in terms of services. So I don't work in that department, but again, that service is available to all. And just as an aside, the caregiver program we're very flexible. So for a caregiver program, it could be a telephonic assessment or an in-person assessment, whatever works for you. Whereas the home care services are a little bit more like they want to see you in the home. And I saw James pop on, so do you have to add? You want something to add?
I just want to, and Stacy, I think you can clarify if I'm wrong, but I think Mass Options is a resource that serves everybody in the state. So you don't have to worry about which town you're in and if that serves which ASAP or which organization or whatever, but you can Google Mass Options. There's an online tool. There's also a phone number. If you don't want to go online or you can't go online, and there's multiple languages served through that service. So I think it's a great resource. And also, usually the connection point on a local level is a council on aging. Most every community in the state has one, and councils on aging and organizations like Boston Senior Home Care typically work together to just kind of coordinate and connect people with whatever resources they might need. So as Jess was saying, you don't have to know about all these things. You just kind of have to know who to contact to help you navigate it. So people like Stacy, your local council on aging, and then that Mass Options tool would be a good one. So just want to suggest that to simplify a little bit.
Thank you both for that answer. And Stacy, before you go, do you mind explaining or defining who a caregiver is? There's another question that kind of came in the chat. Thank you.
A caregiver is anyone, honestly. It doesn't have to be, there doesn't have to be a familial relationship. You don't have to live with the person. If you are caring, if you're caring for someone in any way, whether you're calling daily or you're checking in daily or you live with them, it really does not matter. It's just if you feel you're a caregiver, if someone identifies you as their caregiver, as far as my program goes, that's all it takes. We have caregivers who live with people. We have caregivers who live in California. It doesn't, there's those long-term caregivers, actually, we have quite a few of them. And particularly during the pandemic, that's when, going back to technology, but that's when that really became even more useful for those people who can't be there every day. So it looks different for everyone in terms of eligibility for the caregiver support program. The caregiver just has to be over the age of 18 and the care recipient has to be over the age of 60. Hopefully that answers the question.
Thank you. I think it does, but I throw it back to the participants. Do you have further questions about caregiving? This is a lot of information, and it feels like even by presenting this amount of resources, it could feel overwhelming. And so I want to make sure that if you have further questions specifically for any of our speakers, now would be a great time. But one thing that was pointed out is that caregiving is happening by lots of people. So we know that 25% of millennials are doing some sort of caregiving, and that might seem unusual, but it's true. And even though the typical caregiver is a woman who's usually in her late 40s taking care of a parent, an aging parent, and children at the same time, still working, we know that caregiving comes in many forms. So another question here about what about someone who needs care for cancer, for instance, but they're not over 60? Does that count as caregiving? So caregiving is the thing that you are doing to help someone, and it seems like your question may be more focused on, does that count for the program that Stacy identified? The particular program, I'm not sure, so I'm going to let her answer, but there are lots of family caregiving support programs and types of services. So again, Stacy, do you have some thoughts about the particular program that you're working with?
I'll say we have a lot of flexibility, and we try to help whoever we can. So I would say send a referral through, because again, if we can't help, we use Mass Options as well. So we'll get on Mass Options and see what else might be out there to help. So no referral is a bad referral, in my opinion.
Great. Yeah. So reach out to folks, try Mass Options and see if you can. I think we're all in the business of trying to help people get what they need to age well and care for the people they love. So other comments or questions? The chat box seems to be answered now. No more Q&A. Unless I hear something, I want to just say thank you to everybody who presented. Thank you to everybody who participated. I hope that this has provided you with some insights why ARP is working in community and on caregiving, what we're doing in Massachusetts in particular, what we're doing at the very local level, and how the resources that are available are able to be accessed. Antron, I know that you have another slide with some resources, though we've put a lot of them up, but some of them that you've already heard about, the ARP Family Caregiving Guide, where Prepare to Care, but also the other ones that Leslie mentioned. We've got something called the ABCs of ADUs. We love our acronyms at ARP. So ADUs or accessory dwelling units, those are those small additions to your home that could be used either as a caregiver or for someone else to live in that that could provide some income. And then the Home Fit Guide, which really is a good place to think about, is your home safe and ready to have people live in it as they age? So turning it back over to Antron to close us out. Thank you so much to everybody who has joined us today.
Thank you all so much for being here today. I really appreciate it. As Jess said in the beginning, this event was